Hi, everybody. I would like to continue our conversation with Rashidi, who is the Global Chief Data and Analytics Officer for Merck Commercial. But I would like to take a more artistic and also creative approach. I love the movie 2001 Space Odyssey,
Me too.
and every time I see what happens between HAL, the computer, and the astronauts, I was thinking maybe they didn't have a good or they didn't have at all a cognitive officer who prevented this from happening, right? So I think that a good cognitive officer can actually prevent HAL to turn against the astronauts.
It's a very good question. I actually think a good cognitive officer can. I actually don't think the common masses can. If you guys have ever seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
Okay.
they were looking for the golden ticket. And there's this scene where you have three individuals from the government standing there with one guy with a massive room of mainframes. And the computer, he asked the computer, tell us where the golden ticket is. And the computer's telling him, well, no, that would be cheating. Like the computer was actually giving instructions and embedding sort of moral code. Whether it knew the answer or not didn't matter, but it had enough contextual knowledge where the funny part of it is we were still relying on the computer to give us answers because we didn't have the answers. So I think part of it is social responsibility as well. It's always easy to pass the accountability and the buck on the technology, on the quote unquote subject matter experts. But like I always say, data doesn't replace common sense and it doesn't replace critical thinking. It's got to be a combination of both, and don't skip the details. So I don't think it'll take over the world if we don't let it, but we do tend to rely heavily on it. We enjoy the conveniences that come with it. So if it is to be undone, I think it's at our own hands, not the machines.
So lastly, I'm collaborating now with the Opera of Santa Maria del Fiore, that is the Cathedral of Florence. We decided together to build the artificial intelligence of Michelangelo. Our team in Florence is composed by Monsignor Verdon, who is a representative of the clergy, but also the director of the museum, and three other experts. I'm basically now training them to become a little bit like cognitive officers for this institution, so that is 700 years old. You believe artificial intelligence is an asset for mental health, education, and other aspects of our daily life, also to get through those difficult times that we're going through?
I do. I do very much so. If we take a look at just even the COVID period, and I know everyone's hit COVID fatigue and we don't want to talk COVID, if you will. I think there's new topics out there. But there's no greater time where we get information, rich content about the world, the arts, the sciences, the literature. Someone could mention a poet, and I can look up that poet and everything about the poet and all the artifacts and all the articles. Someone can mention an artist, and I can do a deep dive that'll require me 2 to 3 weeks to fully appreciate everything from the background to the works of art to the mindset, maybe to some of the tragedies. Um, Curating all this information takes massive processing power. Curating this information so the things that are most relevant to an individual. So the notion of personalization requires tremendous compute power. And so I think if you combine just what's needed to be able to do this for the convenience of ourselves, 100%. And I think, having been in the creative industries and working for Sony Music, I have a tremendous and deep respect for the arts. And so much more can happen in terms of distribution of content, content creation, getting the knowledge out there, using technology as a strong foundation, especially in the cognitive area. What that means for many folks, though, will vary because industries are across a different maturity curve. So one may call it cognitive services when at the end of the day, it's just business rules and process protocols, and you're enabling a workflow. So it's automation. Is automation really cognitive services? I would say no, but I think some people would say absolutely. So the answer will vary, but that's just my humble positioning.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sol. I really appreciate your insights and your, sharing with us your experience. Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Francesco.
In the heart of Florence, an enormous church, the cathedral, surmounted by the dome begun 600 years ago by Filippo Brunelleschi, marks the beginning of the Renaissance, the dawn of modern history. Called Santa Maria del Fiore, the cathedral is the center of a unique monumental complex whose masterpieces transformed European art. Works by Giotto, Ghiberti, Donatello, Luca della Robbia, Paolo Uccello, Andrea del Castagno, Antonio Polavolo, Verrocchio, Michelangelo, and Giorgio Vasari throng the buildings and museum enlarged and reinstalled from 2012 to 2015, giving voice to the faith and creativity of Florentines from the age of the Crusades to the present. Commissioned and financed by the citizens of Florence, the baptistry, cathedral, and bell tower express the vision that this city had and still has, as well as its ability to touch the mind and feelings of all who love it. The more than 2 million women and men from every part of the globe who every year visit the monuments confirm, moreover, the universality of the message, which all can grasp thanks to its underlying humanism. The institution responsible for the monuments and museum, the Cathedral Foundation, or Opera di Santa Maria del Fiore, founded in 1296, has organized various itineraries for visitors according to people's specific interests and available time. The key element of every visit is intelligibility, and a broad range of didactic tools allows all to read the cultural and technical aspects of our buildings and masterpieces. From the mysteries of religious iconography to those of structural engineering, and from the styles of our artists to the policies of those who commission the works, everything is translated into accessible language, in publications and apps, in guided visits and videos on the social networks. The opera engages its real and virtual friends in a passionate dialogue on the beautiful, the good, and the true, in the carved and painted faces of its prophets and saints, in the self-portraits of its artists, among which that of Michelangelo, as in the transcendent spaces of its structures. The Opera di Santa Maria del Fiore invites you to discover the strength of character, the greatness of soul, the mystic interiority of Florence and of the Renaissance.